Welcome back, friends, to Occultists Anonymous. It's been just a little bit since you saw us. We're back. We are actually playing Mage, though I don't know how much dice rolling we'll actually do today. Today we're going to do kind of a recap of the past 10 years of Purgatory Bluff. Talk about where we're at. The players and I have all discussed stuff individually, and they may have some idea of what's happened, but we're going to delve into some stuff, so there may be some reveals to them and to you. Actually, of course it's going to be to you. You don't know any of this. But, you know, we might have some surprises in store. It's only been 10 years. Things happen in 10 years. But one thing that will never, ever change is our love for your love. And we I was going somewhere with this, but never mind.
He's he let him cook. He's out of practice.
Oh yeah, God, I'm out of practice. I was talking about that at work, and I was like, I'm super excited to be back. They're like, oh, how long's it been since you ran a game? And I was like, I don't actually want to think about that. This is going to be
18 months.
Yeah. Well, I was saying 18 months, and I realized actually we're getting really close to 2 full years.
Woo! Being harassed again.
It was May, right?
Think so.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but yes, we love your love for us. Thanks, patrons.
I do want to say, like, even if you're like hate supporting us, we still love you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're one of those people who want to give us money, just so you can join our special secret chat and hear all the things that we're saying about other actual plays and how, you know, whatever, or you want to, you know, see our secret stuff, yeah, you should totally give us money so
major drama alert.
Yeah, there's all sorts of drama going on, and you can hear all our secret phrases and all the passcodes to all that. Yeah, I'm going back to the Patreon list. Adele, Alice, Al, Alexander, Alsrit, Bernie, Buck, Chris, Doc, Emil, Ethan, Jeff, George, I'm the Real 06, James, John, Camo, Catfeathers, Klaus, Milo V3, Moku, Mozart D minor, Noctal, Perry, Foog, Porter, Puppeteer, Riafio, Cheyenne, Sean. It says Sean. Shaxara, Starfish,
take it off.
Thomas, Verhext, Vincent, Vortex Falcon, Zoltan, and Aethernalis the Mad. Thank you all so much for your support. Hi, I'm back.
He's back, everyone.
So yeah, when we last left our mages, it was June 16th, 1847. It has been 10 years since then. We are picking up in 1857. To give you all some context, when the group left, they were prepared to go into Valosia Stokes's Oneros. That's Theo's daughter. You remember her? She was 7. She's 17 now. Men have asked for her hand in marriage at this point. She's not married, right. Don't worry. Because Theodosia is there, and let's be honest, a Moros who can see into your soul, she's going to be real picky about, about who's marrying her daughter. But we'll get into that. And Valosia isn't the only child here either. So yes, lots of stuff has happened. So I'm going to start with some events that have happened, just to kind of get some folks up to speed with where we left off, and then we'll start talking about individual characters and what they've been doing. So one of the big things that happened was an actual bandit raid. This was not our good friend Salazar. Mm-hmm. He has another story that we will talk about. But yes, a bandit raid, because this is a mining town. Purgatory Bluff literally pulls silver ore out of the ground. And it does ship it off to be processed elsewhere. There was no major industrial stuff, but it is silver ore. And some of that stuff by itself was raw silver. And it's also an undefended town. It's far enough away from the Fort Leon that it takes a minute for soldiers to find out what's happening and ride out. So a quick bandit raid, it's a problem. And I think that is the time when the Coven realized two things. One, they probably need to organize who's responsible for what when a threat faces the town. And I'm kind of curious for Arachne, Petrichor, Legba, and Babasera, how they individually as a coven work together to protect the town in the event of a threat, but also how did you all cover and protect your sleeper personas? Because obviously Isabel is the sheriff. She's guarding the town. But kind of hard to cast magic when you've got people looking to you to save us, sheriff. So how did you guys kind of divvy that up? What do you think?
If we could start, like Babasera would primarily be concerned with the other side of the river. And if there's trouble, she's got this new mill that she's built. There's a textile mill there that's strong and sturdy and a good place to hide a large number of people if they need to. So I think they should be organizing withdrawals to there, and it's multi-story. So if we need people with rifles up on the second floor or something, that's always an option as well. So it's a defensible place and a sturdy enough place that they don't have to worry about it burning down in a few minutes.
Yeah, because it is a big stone brick structure, right? Yeah.
Yep. We won't talk about where she found all the field stone to make it, stuff like that.
I think Isabel puts a pretty firm line between herself and Petrichor. Is that if it's not a magical threat, she does not need to be Petrichor.
She's pretty damn talented just by herself.
Damn talented as Sheriff Isabel.
Yeah.
And at this point has like very much earned the faith and trust of the town. And so, I mean, she's no like tactician or whatever, but if it's just a handful of fellas running in on horses to try and steal some shit, like it's
not a military incursion.
They don't know how over it is.
Right. Sure. So would we say that like Petrichor doesn't even factor into it, and it's more of a no, Sheriff Isabel needs to stay Sheriff Isabel and organize the town basically on the other side of the river.
Yeah, for like I said, for mundane threats, like for other stuff happening. Obviously, there's probably different things happening.
Okay.
And she would probably use weather signals. I think that in a in a non immediate sense of need, she can put up signals for to cover the town, and that way wherever anyone is, if we have a code of like winds from the east, and that kind of thing.
I also realized that's a great way to send all the townsfolk inside where they can't see things that they maybe shouldn't.
True. We'll get into how easy that is soon. But
how are the bandits getting into the town?
Because you're thinking about the imp and its protection.
Yeah.
So long as people are just moseying on and just traveling and not necessarily picking on Purgatory Bluff, they can get through. So if they haven't picked out Purgatory Bluff as a target so much as they're riding along, following the river maybe, and
then this side is an opportunistic thing.
Right. And basically that in my head, this bandit camp is literally they know Fort Leon is up that way. So they're probably on, the southern side moving up north. The fort's out that way. and then come across, oh, here's this town. And, maybe they send in a couple of the guys, hey, go see what's going on in the town. What's worth taking? They run,
Right.
come by, they go by the pub, the tavern, and come back out. Oh yeah, we can do the XYZ. At that point, they're within that radius. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. Um, Gisla's just she's going to be retreating with the townsfolk to safety if it looks like there's danger coming,
Mm-hmm.
and just sort of from afar, subtly like throwing out hexes on them, basically.
Ooh, cool.
Do have the advantage of all that fate, which just bad luck, bud.
Yeah, she's just like sitting back here, huddled up in the house with the family, and just looking out the window and like plucking threads.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Cloak.
Alrighty. So Cloak got to a pretty stable point in his legacy right before the decade started. And he was able to finally achieve that mantle of the Guardian of the Crossroads, which gave him an attainment that could be pretty useful when trying to occlude or discourage attention from a space. So the thing that I think he would always like right at the beginning, I think right after the journey and going into religious chantry and stuff like that, I imagine that and I know you want to go into this more detail, but for the sake of like what do we do in situations like this, I want to briefly touch on it, hint at it. So I imagine the Coven had a conversation about stuff. Cloak was most affected by the relationships prior to that, and he needed to understand why certain dynamics were occurring, and it led to some like reinforcement in his trust through the course of this conversation, which again we'll go into. But anyway, one outcome of that is this: Cloak feels very comfortable deferring to Isabel and Petrichor in the course of the choices we make about dealing with the town as a whole. So the things that he would feel it's his personal responsibility are, of course, les enfants, and the mines are always a safe place to go. It's very easy to have people go into mines that outside people are unfamiliar with, and then just disguise an entrance that they went down, and you're never going to find them, right? And there's no way anybody's going to be confused about that. So that'd be the first thing, right? I think it's always like people can go into the mines as much as they want. I imagine that a lot of people who aren't les enfants at this point are uncomfortable with it. And who knows, we'll go in there and that can get disguised. And then Cloak would offer, of course, to serve as dispatch through telepathy in the event that Isabel says a message needs to go to someone specific, right? Like, hey, Cloak is prepared to do that, right? I think his primary responsibilities would be communication. And then in the event that Petrichor, not Isabel, but Petrichor needs to do something large and really
flashy,
glaring. Yeah,
with your little red pen from Men in Black.
Doesn't
yes,
seem,
exactly. Yeah.
Doesn't seem like something I would do on one of my characters. Big and flashy.
Yeah. So Cloak is prepared, right? Like, I'm there to make sure that the least mental consequences occur to the townsfolk and anybody else as a consequence of anything that Petrichor and Isabel deems necessary. So that would be the role I think he would provide in that situation. That'd be very comfortable for him too. I help people connect, and then in the event that people need to not notice something, he's there.
So we have our tactical strike team, we have our defense team, we have our sniper, and then we have our psyops. Great.
Yeah. That's right. Exactly.
Cool.
And I think we're all kind of agreed in this scenario, like we would prioritize lives over goods and material possessions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
It
the
ain't
other
my
reason.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because like in the mine, like we're gonna hide people, and anything we pulled out of the mine, it's here. And let's be honest, any bandits in this particular case, these bandits, they're riding in on horses. They don't have a wagon. They don't have a bunch of stuff. They're going to grab what is readily available, what's easy to grab, and they're riding on. They're not about to look at that dark tunnel entrance and go, yeah, that seems like a good idea.
Yeah, let's all take our horses into the mine, or
Which
let's all
in their
dismount.
minds seems to
They
have
don't
grown
call me
deep
Jerry
enough.
Bad Ideas Gumption for nothing.
I love it. All right, good stuff.
I mean, Gisela is definitely protecting her own property.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, the goats.
She's
Protect
like
the
sitting.
goats.
She's like sitting at the upstairs window with the shotgun, pushing out curses, and with the shotgun.
I love that. Reviewing back here to some cultist stuff. We had a couple different questions there, making sure I didn't skip anything, miss anything. Okay, good stuff. Other little thing, our good friend Eggrock. Y'all remember her? Just kind of keeping her like
In a bubble.
yeah. And I mean, you guys let her kind of look around, but basically after the shenanigans that she completely missed with Rilla and Rilla and Rilla, it's about a year later that she's like, there was something about this girl and she's gone now, and I literally have no idea what mystery these nameless mages are gathered around. Whatever it is, they're keeping it really well hidden. I don't know what it is. She's gone into the mine multiple times. There's nothing in there.
This place is boring as hell.
It's boring as hell. What are these mages doing? And so
why are they here?
Eventually she and her husband, kind of pack up shop, and it's very cordial. You definitely get the vibe that she's like, y'all are a little nuts, but you're also nameless mages. So you know what? You do you, and packed up, and she left. There was a little follow-up as she had left, talking about, yep, you guys have claimed this territory. The mysteries within Purgatory Bluff are yours. There's some comments about the space, I think she would say hallowed by an imp is yours. The space beyond it, is not necessarily yours, but it's in your vicinity. So nobody else is like, but it's very clearly there is a border for your territory. And she's like, among her caucus, the Mysterium caucus, they're like, yep, they got first dibs on stuff. So if you find something in Purgatory, or if you hear something about Purgatory Bluff, you got to go talk to them. Otherwise, they could accuse you of stealing stuff. And she's like, not that there's anything to find. Bye, y'all. And
where's she from?
I
She's
believe
from New York, wasn't she?
Yeah.
New York City.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
And so she kind of bebopped out of there, after which and that, like I said, that was about a year in, which I will come over to the calendar and actually
58.
The year of
48.
the gold rush
48.
in
Yep.
Cali.
Yeah, we'll say literally the anniversary of whatever the heck was happening. She left. New event. Let's see here. Diamond Order leaves Purgatory Bluff. There we go. I like that. All right. Of course, Eggrock leaving is merely a foreshadowing of things to come. All right. We got some stuff about the Purgatory River, but that's going to be a little bit later in the year, so we'll skip that for now. Oh yes, getting into like some more personal stuff. Warner Enright, y'all remember Warner? He's our good pal, owns Purgatory Bluff.
Rip Bozo.
Yeah, he's
I mean, for a ritual fuck, he's nice.
yeah.
And Theo had been working on him for a long time to get doors open. They had a cordial relationship, and
Yep, and my notes here says Warner Enright becomes a very good friend of Theodosia Stokes, and then passes
does.
away. I'm imagining This is probably before Gisela's family even leaves, because Theo was focusing in on this, and it was probably because of that friendship that there was no big fuss about her building her mill. So that's kind of my expectation. I know also Cloak was working not necessarily on a friendship, but more of a, I don't know if Warner would see it as a business relationship or what you think in that regard.
I mean, the thing is, it takes Cloak. We haven't chosen a number, but he doesn't start seeing anybody as a friend until the latter parts of the decade, right? Like he crosses that threshold and actually starts viewing the members of the Covenant as friends, right? So I don't know exactly when, and it was a big moment for him too, when he realized they had already befriended him. But again, I don't want to anticipate things too much. So for Warner, I don't know exactly when Warner dies. So that will depend. If he's crossed the
2-3
threshold,
years.
2-3. Yeah. Okay. So I think Cloak holds Warner in fond esteem. Yeah, I think like he's yeah, he's landed gentry, you know.
Right.
He engages him in this formal relationship, but he has crossed the threshold and no longer become a threatening influence on the people he's responsible for.
Right.
Which in Cloak's mind is like the closest you can get to being a friend, right? Because that's not, a status that anybody can have in his life at this point. So
I like that. Okay. Yeah, and I believe this is also about the same time that you're working with some of the other Maroons to be like, hey, we don't have to work the mine. There's some other places we can work. At that point, the mill has been started. The farmland out on the other side of the river is real great.
It's perfect.
It's amazing. Lots of what's the word, surplus product and stuff like that is getting shipped out of Purgatory Bluff. Which doesn't make it like a huge thing, but it's kind of a little breadbasket of the area. The fort starts to not necessarily depend on, because they still got shipments of stuff coming in because they're a fort. But, the quartermaster comes down and is like, hey, do you have any more of that XYZ? Because
it's important for the winters, I feel like. I feel like it's important for their winters.
Oh, that's very true.
Oh,
yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, because
it's a lot easier to get a shipment of stuff from 20, 30 miles away rather than across the goddamn country.
Yep, very true. And because
military supply lines and stuff.
Yeah, we tend to think of the area that we're in as kind of desert, and it is, but this is also still Colorado. So when those winters roll in, they can be damn cold. So yeah, that's very true.
We're also along an alluvial plain. And I think it's on that part of Colorado where there's the Equispeds, that enormous aquifer in that part of the country. It's like 200 to 300 million years old. So it's unusually moist. The ground, the groundwater is like unusually stable because of the aquifer. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is like the best place for them to get food consistently.
Yeah.
And that if the harvest lasts longer. So
yeah, because the
also,
folks down the way do not have that kind of farmland.
Something that I had thought of before, but I forgot to mention in the chat, is that over the course of the 10 years, because of where we are in Colorado, if we started producing a lot of agriculture in the town, that we necessarily would have to deal with a locust outbreak.
Yeah. Oh yes. Hey, if you're new to OA and into the West, Ralph is into bugs. Ralph knows bugs.
It's an understatement.
It's an understatement.
It's the man's whole career.
Yeah.
Into birds is how I would talk about Ash. Into bugs is like not giving him enough credit.
Yeah.
Fair. So was this like a multi-year problem, or?
Well, the locusts in Rangeland America are generally not multi-year, but what happens is, just as a brief primer, right, is that if they feed in an area and the population gets large enough, then the subsequent generation will exhibit traits that lead to them migrating. So
Oh.
they're like bumping up. It's basically like they're crowding themselves, and it causes some developmental changes. So they lay eggs, and then those eggs develop into locusts, which have longer wings and bigger bodies, and they fly around and eating. So um, if there's enough food in the area, then it would contribute to large populations. And at the time, right, what are you going to do? There's like very few ways you can control them.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we're using magic,
Unless
right?
you light up the petrichor sign and
Yes, unless you're using magic, right, then you're just going to have huge amounts. So either we deal with them early magically somehow, or I imagine there would be what you see in some areas of Africa, where everyone in the town comes out and manually harvests locusts or grasshoppers so that they don't eat all your food.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can use cultural control. You can pick them off the plants, right? They're
Mhm.
not going to bite you for the most part, right? Like it's fine. But if you don't have enough people, then they just eat everything. So, but if Petrichor chose to manage it, then great, right?
Right.
It occurred to me that would necessarily be something that we'd have to deal with if there's a lot of rangeland, or not rangeland, if there's a lot of
I
agricultural.
imagine. I mean,
crops.
I think the ensuring the harvest and the weather comes down to a lot of cooperation between Theodosia and Petrichor.
Cool.
Mhm. Yeah, a
And
lot
so
of interaction and back and
as
forth
soon as
between them.
Theodosia notices that the farmers are talking about locusts and stuff, Petrichor, I'm just gonna knock this out in an afternoon. We're gonna be just fine, fellas.
So yeah, because I mean, all just for historical accuracy, and I'm all down for that. Sometimes when it's fun,
Mhm. Yeah,
we can literally go change my note about people downriver are wondering about the fertility of the ground. Nah, they're wondering how are you guys not getting eaten up by locusts? I don't know. It's just weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're lucky
they-
like
they-
that.
They chose not to land there. The wind blew them elsewhere. Totally reasonable.
Yep, I like that.
Do we want to talk about the river?
Because that is going to be our big inflection point. That's going to be our kind of that's where we're going to start. So that will probably be the very last thing, because fortunately everybody is like, I have a reason to care about the river right now, and I'm like, perfect.
Great.
I love it. So
All
yeah.
invested.
Yes. So actually talking about river, we transition to railroad. So we were talking about, hey, the railroads come through. Actually, historically speaking, we're a couple decades away from the railroad. So similarly, we developed revolvers and whatever the particular bullets were, just to make things more classic Wild West shenanigans. What do we think about the railroad showing up early, or do we leave it down a decade or two away, thereby putting more emphasis on the river?
I liked that.
I like that.
To keep the river very important.
I like it being a thing that we've started to hear rumors about.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's
It's
fair enough.
They've set out from St. Louis to start making
Oh yeah.
making their way out this way or whatever.
There was that John Wayne movie where there was a big cattle drive and we're going to go this way, but they heard a rumor there was a railhead at another town that was closer.
Gotcha.
So there was a huge amount of tension. Somebody got shot. Anyway, it was really good.
Makes sense.
That's
Somebody
kind of
got
the
shot in the
maybe
John
there's
Wayne
a railroad there, maybe not. I like that idea.
Yeah. So okay, yeah. Majority is definitely like railroad seems to be headed this way. It's the ever continual rumor. Same thing like fiber internet coming to your neighborhood. It's coming. It's coming. It's definitely coming. Just one of these years.
They'll be there soon.
Yep. Okay, I like that. And much more recently, and I need to reference my other notes here. Things have gotten a little bit more interesting. It's basically been 4 years, which is 4 years after we last saw. We had the 1851 treaty between the U.S. government and the Arapaho and Cheyenne, basically setting up, okay, this is your territory. Fun fact.
Like,
Yeah, Ike gets to find out that land that your dad claimed that he had, not actually his land. Native American territory. All that land, the area that Purgatory Bluff is built on, technically belongs to the Native Americans. Ike is not happy about this. He's also discovering this as the mine is starting to fail. And so he is now pushing more back into Dad's old business, cattle, and is, well, it's Ike. So he has, at this time, 1851, because the folks come down from Fort Leon and are very informative and like, hey, this is technically Native American land, so we can't protect you. You need to talk with them yourselves and work things out. And then looks over to Theo and the farmers across the river and go, y'all are fine because you're on that side of the Purgatory River. For those of you at home going, wait, really?
That's a nice gentleman.
Yes, really.
Actually, yes.
I actually pulled this
Literally.
map up, and it's just because I was trying to figure out something time and I'm desperately trying to find the Purgatory River. And lo and behold, it is the southern border of the Arapaho and Cheyenne territories in 1851. So yeah, we just managed to pick the right river. It's pretty great. And getting back to my notes. So yes, there has been a little bit more conflict there. The Arapaho and Cheyenne are both more nomadic. So for the most part, it's never been a problem, especially like the recent years. They don't care because really you are on the borders of their territory.
Yeah.
But as Ike starts to take cattle out farther, and for our purposes, out beyond the Imp's borders. There's occasional run-ins. Occasionally cattle are stolen, which of course, Ike being Ike, he's like, well, that's fine. We'll just solve this with violence, and further arms up his men, which have led to some skirmishes and some problems. And I know this is a big thing for Sheriff Isabel, but obviously the rest of y'all feel free to contribute here. Where, and let's be real, I know what side of things you all are on, but how do you handle some of these interactions and stuff like that? And feel free to create specific events for yourselves. I just have the vague idea that there's obviously some conflict here between Ike specifically, not really necessarily even Purgatory Bluff, but obviously if Native Americans are getting back at Ike, they're going to be interacting with the folks at Purgatory Bluff.
Right. From a in the town perspective, I think there's a while of as Ike is further arming his cattle drivers and stuff, of some tension of you can't just have an extrajudicial army hanging out at your house. And a couple of them getting drunk and starting a fight, and then Isabel having to hang somebody for the first time, probably.
Okay, we're gonna write that one down.
Oh man. Yeah.
Would Isabel have reached out to the U.S. Marshal at the fort for support from time to time, or just handle it herself?
I mean, I will say judiciously, as for judicially. There we go. Technically, not their jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Like a circuit judge, because this is when we actually started to get circuit judges actually traveling around, may hear the case, but yeah, not really actually their judgment call. That's one of the big things that Fort Leon would have told you. For the big history nerds out there, I know this may not be historically accurate. Shh.
Um, and then from Petrichor's side, um, she would try to find out if there were any awakened mages amongst the local tribes and make contact and like peaceful, like, hey, how's it going? Sort of contact, which is I think something that probably already would have been going on, like
Mhm.
when we were having our last campaign. We just didn't really touch on it.
Yep.
I did just double check. Colorado's not even a territory yet.
Nope.
It's still part of Texas, right?
I think I'm not
I feel
entirely
like I
sure.
looked this up the other day, and then
So we go ahead and look that up. But yes, it is during this time that we meet Okomi, who is a Native American mage. He is former Diamond Order, was recruited kind of early on, as a lot of the Diamond has spread west and tried to recruit people and make inroads with Native American mages. And for the most part, because of the nature of the astral, for instance, and different similarities of like, hey, we can all talk about the same path. And we've had tons of people exploring west for, a decade. Well, decades. At this point, this is not uncommon. But Okomi, yes, is technically, he actually like meeting with Petrichor and realizing mage to mage, a little, high speech, like, hi, how are you doing? Yeah, okay, we're on the same page here kind of thing. He's like, hey, just to let you know, I am an apostate. It's like, is this going to get you in trouble? Which I think is probably the first time Petrichor has heard the phrase apostate.
Yeah.
And, somebody who has left the Diamond Order, and more or less because Okomi is like, hey, yeah, you see how the European folks are treating us? Not into this. They're over here playing, kingmakers and all this influence, and they're not looking out for me and my people. We're out. And definitely gives you the idea that that's the way for a vast majority of the Native American mages. Most of the people that, especially by 1850, a lot of the mages who had joined and been part of the various Diamond Order and the caucuses that spread west have started to drift away. And you also hear of the seers who you've had less contact with, but there are even some of the Native American folks who had joined up with the seers because they did have some interesting like ideas and promises, and also are drifting away from them because, again, it's not working out for the Native American people at all, and it's going to get worse. So that's the big connection that Purgatory Bluff has for the first time with other nameless mages, and realizing that there are other out there. And this is also when Purgatory Bluff gets their first invite, and I will assume for most of you who are not interested, to join the Free Assembly of West America, which is a big organization. They give you some territory to keep an eye on. There's some responsibilities, some not necessarily taxes, but services that you would be expected to, share back to the Free Council. And yeah, I'm seeing a lot of the shaking heads. It's like
The Free Council.
We already got all the territory we want.
Excuse me, the Free Assembly. Excuse me. We have the territory we want.
It's a very polite no,
right,
compared to her previous no's, right?
Right. And that's kind of what I figured, and especially because you all know where this is going to go anyways. So, but is at this point that you start to hear about some of these different conflicts among the different nameless, and some of the nameless and Diamond Order fighting, some of the nameless and seers fighting, and most of the time it's really soft Cold War kind of conflicts. Occasionally, magical, violence sparking up, but it's all far and away. A lot of it is in cities and major, more metropolitan kind of areas. Speaking of which, Legba is hearing about this elsewhere. So that's a big thing. But Akomi is also basically a regular contact, just because his particular tribe does come through the area near Purgatory Bluff. So if any of you have in the future or currently have, because I can't remember all the magic, all the XP that you all have spent, but if there are any rotes that you all have bought that you didn't create yourself, Akomi would potentially be one of those like contacts and friend of a friend in order to locate those or something like that.
Yeah, and like under the guise of like trying to get the town to be like cooperative and like existing in the native territories and stuff, like they'd be welcome in the town.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that makes sense.
And you do have
It's like we're not going to join you, but if you need something and you want to negotiate it, come on by.
Yep.
I think Theo would go a little bit farther into reaching out as part of her project and map Paleolithic burial sites and things like that. She'd be wanting to get legends and experiences, and if there's any like fallen magic practices that they use or something like that. So she would try to reach out and establish like a rapport with them.
Yeah. Which, hey, we'll use that as a good. Well, actually, does anybody else on the broad spectrum of talking about Native American stuff? Did anybody else have anything? Go ahead.
Real small thing to bring up. I was thinking that in the course of, I know we're going to, again, elaborate on it later. It's going to come up. But in the course of the stuff that happens with Salazar, that Legba would have had some interactions with indigenous mages in the area. Because that probably would have been his initial interest, is riling up people to throw off the yoke of European influence, considering that's what he was already trying to do. So it wouldn't surprise me if Legba had been roaming around, like trying to prevent him from making certain mistakes in the course of trying to expound on his own motivations. But it's totally cool that he hadn't met Akomi, right? There's all kinds of reasons why he wouldn't meet everyone. Just it wouldn't surprise me if, people had seen Legba or at least heard of him walking around places. So.
Yeah, and Salazar is south of the border for us in modern times,
now.
Right?
Yeah, totally. I just mean initially, right?
Right.
He probably wouldn't leave. He'd be like, well, who else am I going to want to talk to? I definitely don't want to talk to these people, but I do want to talk to all these people who have rights to the land, capital R in his, as he's saying.
Right.
And I want to help them do what they should be doing, which is throwing a big middle finger at everyone who's here. So he'd be like, okay, well, can't just be doing that.
Nope. No, that leads to further problems. I like that.
Yes, exactly. So
a little bit of a backtrack, but talking about Isabel's justice and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, yeah,
that,
cool.
Like, I think after that, like, first hanging and realizing, like, she's got to have more support from the town behind her to stand up to, like, especially because we now know that, like, Enright doesn't own the land.
Right.
Yeah.
So the, like, hold on the town doesn't exist. He's just a guy with a big house now.
Yeah.
And so she specifically like recruits a couple deputies. One of which would be from among the like farming community. Regardless of whether they're from somewhere else, like you can work in our jurisdiction, right? And then specifically one from Les Enfants.
Awesome.
I made a name for someone.
Yeah.
But okay.
Sweet.
Dominique Sanflor.
Oh, cool.
Who is like, youngish and fit and didn't want to work in the mines and had a sense of wanting to do right by the town and represent his people. And
yes.
And it worked in Blazing Saddles, so
Yes. Or, like I said, the harder they fall.
yeah, I gotta look that up.
It's all black gunslingers. It's real good.
Great. Yeah, because the Stephen King one didn't go so good.
I do need
Mhm.
to.
Yep.
I started it and then
It's
never
not
got
good.
back to it, and then I stopped. Sorry, the harder they fall.
Oh, sorry.
And then I got rid of Netflix, and now I'm like, I never finished that. I watched the first like 5 minutes of it because it's got a hell of a start.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it's on my
Yeah.
list. I like that.
It's great.
I am going to go ahead and say that the other the deputy that you have. Let's see here. Nope, not that. Oh my gosh, Gisela, what is the name of your boss? Why am I completely drawing a blank?
Alejandro?
Thank you. I was like, it's an
One of the cousins, baby.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He got you a nephew.
As far as like wider goings on in the world, 1850 is the Fugitive Slave Act.
Yeah, I was
Mhm.
about to bring that up too.
Yep.
Yeah, it precedes the treaty with
Mhm.
indigenous people.
Yep.
Oh.
So things are weird on that end. But we're gonna just a little sneak peek for
We're gonna
everybody at home. Yeah, that's going to kind of be our major plot point moving forward. So we're gonna put a pin in that because we're definitely coming back to it. Theo had brought it up and reminded me. Yeah, so jumping into some of the different story stuff that y'all have been up to, Theo is going around exploring the underworld, starting with a visit into our own Avernian Gate, and realizing, oh, the underworld absolutely sucks.
And also had an interaction with a guy or with a sin eater
Mm-hmm. Yep.
that helped her understand how really shitty things are.
Yep. And in my notes here, and I think this is what we had discussed, is that you had already gone in and
Mhm.
like, oh crap, there's a whole bunch of stuff down there. I have a note here that some folks had been interested in the Paleolithic Avernian gates, like outside of town. Were folks interested in visiting and digging into the one here in town too?
I think Legba's going with Theo whenever she's doing something risky like this or going to another realm.
Sure.
Right? Like from the very first time they explored that gate and helped the ghost,
Mm-hmm.
right? This
Kinda
will get
said it,
another
yeah.
thing that we'll talk about in detail, right? But his relationship with Theo is very helpful for how he understands the importance of his relationship with everybody else, Gisela and Isabel included. So, yeah, he definitely would be down
Gotcha.
to go, right? Like,
It's
In
a
the
middle
very
of the
y'all,
night, ready
y'all
to
have
ride.
fun sort of thing
yeah,
from Isabel.
Sure. But yeah, so you guys kind of explored, probably not too far down, probably never made it down to a river town because that's getting way down into dangerous territory that you don't have any kind of background on until yes, a sin eater comes through town, traveling, not after any particular thing, but kind of probably draws Theo's eye because Theo has weekly picnics at the cemetery.
hmm
With whoever wants to come from the town.
Yep. And the sin eater is like, okay, that's weird, and then realizes, oh, you're weird, not like me, but close enough. And so yeah, sin eater gives you some introduction to what exactly is going on down there and some of the broader strokes of ghost lore, though they themselves not particularly well versed in everything, because unfortunately geists have this whole, or excuse me, sin eaters have this whole kind of roller coaster effect of there's a bunch of them and then they kind of dwindle, and there's a bunch of them and then they kind of dwindle. There's about to be a bunch of them, so right now we're in the dwindling period. And so yeah, some introduction there, and probably I am imagining that the Sin Eater is potentially who kind of nudges you into the knowledge of these Paleolithic, these ancient Avernian gates that are out and about to visit. And I think that was the thing that drew attention for a lot of folks. And I know on this other side of that, the ghosts themselves, Gisela is on board like, oh yeah, there's sad ghosts in our cemetery. Yeah, we can help them move on. We can help them, find better places to live instead of the graveyard. And that, I think, Craig, if you want to tell us about your
Relocation program.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
What?
This is why
So,
I
you
said I
know-
wanted to get the live reactions.
Like they are varmints.
No, not at all. So Theo has that lantern, right?
Yeah.
That can be a temporary anchor.
Remind
for
everybody who
any-
may not have seen the previous season.
True. So during our escapades with Rilla, Theo acquired a lantern that, when fed mana, gives off a eerie blue glow and can serve as an anchor for any ambient ghosts. So if there's ghosts in the graveyard that are not aggressive or dangerous, she would make them the offer that she could make an anchor for them at their family home, so the ghost could stay with her family and look after their family.
I had the
No.
same reaction, Chris.
There's a big
Yeah.
vetting
Yeah.
process to go through to make sure that
Mhm.
these aren't going to be dangerous or harmful.
It's so good.
And that kind of
It's
stuff.
so
But
good.
Town's haunted.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
I mean, the ghosts are there anyway, so they might as well have a
Every
good time.
I
Nice.
love
be
it.
with
Every
people
house
that-
is haunted. Yes.
Yeah, and be with people that think about them. It's way better
Yes.
than the alternative.
Yes, it is.
Now, having said that, if there are dangerous or aggressive or like a mad ghost or whatever, she would still be putting those down and getting them through the gate, because they're a danger to everyone around them.
They're
But
danger
if
to
there
the
are-
other ghosts, even.
Even especially the other ghosts, yeah.
Mhm.
But anyone who wishes to, and it would be like an offer, and if you want, I can let you stay with your family. And so, yeah, everything's kind of got a little here as ghosts arrive, because not everybody dies and there's a ghost, right? But
Right.
if somebody does,
That's
she
super
would make
cool.
that offer.
That's really cool.
Yep.
I like that a lot.
Occasionally, after there's been a burial, some people might see a ghostly figure with a pale blue lantern wandering through the countryside at night. Thing.
Yeah,
That's
I'm-
perfect for a frontier town.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and
Gisela, do
basically,
you got some? Do you have a sort of creepy mode of transportation through the night? Because Isabel also will just like go fly in a storm every now and then, go blow off some steam. So like, if we just want to round out the party of cryptid night behavior.
I mean, Cloak's hanging out in the middle, waiting for people.
I was
so-
just saying, Cloak has some, and is it traveling? Cloak is waiting in
Mhm.
Yes,
ambush.
Legba's just standing out there.
He's just standing there, menacingly.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, is Giza getting in on these shenanigans, or is just some judgment, some judgy eyes?
I mean, probably neither. She's just gonna let y'all handle this one.
Fair enough.
I like that.
That's good.
So from there, let's see here. It's been so yeah, we're about 3 years forward ish. And in that time, I believe Madam Stokes has made a trip back home and said farewell to her husband and son.
Mm.
And believe we saw a little bit of it with our live season 1, but Craig, if you want to give us a quick recap, because I know that was a big thing for her, and has a interesting parallel for Isabel next.
So during the events with Rilla, Theo was presented the hypothetical, but it's magic and fate and time, so maybe not hypothetical, opportunity to go back and save her husband and her son. And that fucked her up for quite a while, until a few conversations helped her understand some things about herself and some things about her life. And so after that, when things had gotten a little more stable, she packed up the family and they went on a trip, probably a few months long, back to the old Stokes homestead, where she said goodbye to her family, but not just a goodbye to her family, but had a conversation with Catherine about how, and I'm not sure how she would phrase it, but how she had an offer that if she had the chance, would she go back and change her life, and committed there that no, she was where she wanted to be, taking the experiences that have made her who she is and accepting those and forging a new path together with Catherine. She's where she wants to be. She's with who she wants to be with. And this is her life now. There's no regrets necessarily about what happened before. I mean, it's not a I wish this hadn't happened kind of thing. It happened, and this is where I am now, and this is where I want to go. So that's sort of, in Theo's mind anyway, solidified their relationship a little more solidly in her mind anyway. I'm not sure what Catherine's response was to all that, but
I mean, I'm sure it was a very romantic gesture. It's a little weird that an offer, but okay, sure. My wife is weird anyways. I just roll with the punches these days.
Mhm.
On the other side of things, are the best boy Jules.
Well, he's getting his smooches in.
Yeah. But before things are like completely like, white dress and chapel bells, we got to resolve things. And I can't help but imagine, like in my head, like you brought this up and I was like, yeah, that does need to be resolved. And I literally just am imagining Isabel in a nice, pretty white dress with a shotgun. Just being like, hang on, I got to deal with my ex-husband first.
Why use one big gun when two smaller ones are way cooler?
And oh yeah, we got to talk about them revolvers too.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, that's true. Probably hasn't happened yet. Well, one of them is still holding.
One of them is still my soulstone.
Yep.
Just want to throw it out there, like the offer's still open if she ever wants special revolvers.
She's done her own thing. Oh. But yeah, because this 2 or 3 years in, somewhere in there, you and Jules.
I don't think it's that long.
No? Oh, okay, so it's much more. Okay, cool. I dig that. Yeah, so like a year or even 6 months.
Yeah. 6 months to a year later. I mean, she'd because that's the thing is she had kind of resolved it for the most part, emotionally, and then it just felt like to honor her past life and like a very sort of very reflective of what Theo was doing, like to sort of honor her past and come fully to terms with it and settle into her new life. She technically death has not done us part. So I gotta go back to the villa and finish what those spirits did. And with some help from Cloak, and whoever else would like to go do battle, but for the most part, Isabel's probably got it firmly in hand.
Yeah, it would be 100% on board.
Yep.
And just cleans up the like spirit infestation and whatever fucked up resonances and stuff that are there.
In that well.
I'm going to
Yeah.
ask a question on behalf of our viewers because I know there's going to be a bunch of them having this question. Who proposed to who?
I'm pretty sure she nudged him into proposing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like, hey, dummy, you got to do this because I'm not going to ask you. That would be inappropriate. You should ask me to marry you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Or
Because,
just very bluntly, when are you going to ask me to marry you?
yep. So yeah.
That's like the first like big crazy fight Isabel got into during this time
Mhm.
of cleaning out the old villa, her old mansion, and it was like it had been abandoned, right? No one went there. People like a couple people probably went there and then got killed, and then it just was bad.
I will note that when you arrive at the villa, there are new bodies. There are 4 or 5 new bodies, 2 of which are abnormally large and with lupine features,
Oh
Oh my gosh.
which probably sent Isabel on a little bit of a like, what is going on there? There's no spirits there, there's no souls there. But it's just like, that's a very weird thing. It kind of reminds me of these old myths and stories.
Couldn't be real though.
Nope. Meanwhile, of course,
this is not a werewolf campaign.
this is not a werewolf campaign.
That's just a big hairy man.
Is a very big hairy man. Very, very big.
With an elongated sort of jaw and mouth,
Yep.
nose area.
It's not nice to point out people's physical deformities. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then a year or 2 later, we have Maria.
Isabel's daughter is
Yay.
born.
First daughter.
Yay.
She probably with just a little bit of just small doses of life magic to like keep herself healthy. Has one of those pregnancies where it's like you can barely tell until suddenly it's like, okay.
Oh, yeah. I see.
She's having a baby
Not
tomorrow.
showing 9 months.
Yeah.
It's 8 months. You've been pregnant for 8 months? Yeah, I mean.
Come on. We can do that.
So somewhere in there was the bandit
she
parade.
she knows that there's already like, there's a lot of like gender role stuff with her being the sheriff, and she doesn't want to like have the town force her to like sideline.
Yeah.
Because she's like in a family way or whatever.
Totally.
And so just a little bit of magic. Nothing heavy, nothing to like actually target the baby itself.
Right. Which I also think is where we get the departure of a one Miss Abigail Crow. Because up until now, she has played mentor to you and guiding you through the Tempestari, and I wouldn't say enabling some of your more flashy antics, because I don't think you need it. Yeah. But when the baby is born, I feel like, and correct me because this is something that we had discussed a little bit, you and Jules went, okay, no magic around the kid. And Abigail is going, but why not?
But why not?
Like, it's no big deal. This from the woman who literally her shadow name is the stereotypical appearance of a witch. Which, I mean, the two of you flying through the skies as witches. Yeah. And then, so she's like, you know what? You were a lot cooler before you had a kid.
Yeah. I mean, we get to Isabel's third attainment and probably Abigail's fourth developed alongside each other, right?
Yep.
And then it's like, okay, I think this is the end of us as a like close mentorship.
Right.
But, like we're going to have that relationship, just be in a different way.
Yep.
And you're always welcome. When Drew and I talked in our one-on-one, I referenced the grandmother from Halloween Town.
Oh, cool.
just like swinging through for like literally like 24 hours and then being gone the
Yes.
next day, and everyone be like,
Yep.
what?
Showing up with magical toys for
Mhm.
Maria and Lorena 2 years
Yeah.
later.
Yay.
For those of you trying to keep track, it means when we start our game in 1857, they will be 7 and 5.
Yay. Super cute.
Yep.
Yeah.
Between the children being born, the Bauer family leaves Purgatory Bluff
Whoa.
because
They leave Gisela here?
they leave Gisela. Or more specifically, they plan to depart, and Gisela says, "Oh no, I'm staying here. I'm happy here."
Look at this life I've built for myself here.
With this most
Mhm.
forced smile. I mean, she's happy with her goats and the magic, I'm sure, but and she is a very, very popular well, you can say bachelor for guys. What would be the appropriate, because you don't say bachelorette for a woman. But yeah, she's very marriable. And according to my notes, has settled down but has been rebuffing marriage offers. So I mean, at the ripe age of, I think, 24.
She's approaching too old at this point.
Right, yeah, she's becoming a spinster.
Like 24.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. God. So yes, Bauer family leaves. The mine it will actually fall soon after, just because the magic that had been there will pass. And fortunately, Gisela's like, that's fine. It doesn't matter to my family now. And then Rilla returns. Our Rilla, our matching
good
age
one.
Rilla, the good Rilla,
Good Rilla.
with unaccompanied, but when we did last see her, she had left with other Rillas. And she shows up, and the town is kind of in a flutter because Jules never left. Rilla seemed to have left with that one guy. I can't remember his name. The professor, Mortimer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Rilla is back unaccompanied, and we didn't see a horse or a wagon or anything. She just
No boat.
showed up. Stayed a little while with Gisela in the Bauer house with the goats. Stayed, I don't know, probably maybe even a full month. And the two of them were hanging out, having a good time and catching up, and Rilla's happy to catch up with the rest of y'all. Yeah. They were roommates.
I see that face.
My God, they were roommates.
Good friends.
Yes. And catching up, and especially at this point, like, we have baby Maria, who's been born. Valosia is talking. It is now 10. Some stuff has changed. Like, Rilla's like, this is really cool. And after a month, looks at Gisela and goes, "It's really, really boring here. I've seen a lot of stuff. Do you want to go with me?"
Yes. Gisela's just like fully
Like,
falling
the bags
over
are
herself to be like,
magically
yes.
packed.
In my head, she's like, she doesn't even answer the question. She just runs out of the room and then comes back in a minute later with 2 suitcases.
The
And
little
they're
travel
covered
cap
on.
on, ready to go. Yep. And they
God.
leave through a doorway that Legba will probably study later.
Mhm.
You good, Chris?
Yep.
Okay. That Legba will study later and go,
What?
this wasn't space magic. This seems to have been made purely by Prime.
Oh,
And
cool.
Rilla and
Yeah.
Gisela are off on an adventure, and there is town-wide scandal. Because Rilla showed up and spent a month with Gisela, which is fine. They're just, women living together, just like Theodosia and Catherine over there across the river.
It's like those two straight women that live together.
That's exactly.
Because it's very clear that Theodosia is a good and traditional woman because she has a child.
No.
Like, so obviously
she's a widow.
Yeah, nothing weird is happening there. That one wedding, that weird ceremony that they had,
that was very private.
Yeah, that's true. It was. And I mean, ignore the fact that I think Theodosia openly calls Catherine her wife. That's just like it's a friendly teasing name, right? Because they live together.
Something lost in translation.
Yeah.
It's just a term of endearment in her native language. Exactly. It's what you call your friend, your wife, my wife.
My wife.
Thank you.
My wife.
Meanwhile, Gisela and Rilla have disappeared, and that has set up scandal. The goats are kind of become a communal.
They just kind of wander around causing trouble.
Yes,
a little
town
bit.
goat.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Now cue 20 minutes of speculation about the goats because I love goats. So we got goats in the town. They're doing things on their own. Oh yeah.
Well,
I feel like you probably have some random school children who like decide that they're shepherds now.
Correct. Yeah. Like, they look after them. I mean, they're goats. They're not too difficult to deal with. People. Yeah. I mean, compared to some things, right? Especially we're out, here. And so, yeah, Gisela is gone. So, Ash, I do want to say thank you for playing with us. It was a lot of fun to have you. I'm
so shocked by this news that you're leaving. This is crazy. This is worse than John.
God, I still wish I had video for that. But yes. So Ash will be leaving. Ash will continue to be here. And I'm gonna click a button real quick that just okay. So
oh my god, holy shit, that looks so awesome.
Yay! Updated overlay,
Yeah,
updated
You
character.
can't see it right now,
You can definitely see it. It looks so good.
They saw it earlier on Discord. They just can't live see it now.
Out.
It's so good. As I'm very, very quickly looking over. Yeah. Don't worry that Gisela is now named Helena. That's absolutely Gisela using a sword. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
She definitely got like brown hair and 20 years older.
To be fair, when people were speculating about it, there was no color.
That's very true.
That's
it was just the rough sketch. But yeah, so we'll talk about Helena in a couple years. Though we may get some of Helena's backstory as we go. So we had that. Yes. So this is also about the time that actually probably before now that I'm thinking about it, we probably should have touched on Salazar.
Yeah.
Because he probably was.
I touched on him enough. I'm good.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because that would have been probably within the first year of basically Salazar getting to meet his god.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Dragged into the astral to meet Quetzalcoatl.
Yep.
And subsequently awakening.
Oh.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Just in case anybody thought like 4 mages were too many in Purgatory Bluff, there's an overlap during which there are actually 6 mages total because Eggrock was there for a little bit.
And
but
Abigail. 7.
Who?
Abigail.
Oh God, yeah, Abigail. Good Lord, yeah. So yeah, when Eggrock left, she was like, "There's a bunch of mages here, and I don't know why." Yeah. But yeah, so Salazar.
It's like queuing in England.
Everybody's lined up here, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
But unfortunately, with Legba taking Salazar under his wing and trying to guide him, Salazar unfortunately awakens not as a Mystigos, but as an Obrimos, which
Okay.
checks out. Um, and um, he's got some good ideas.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the best way of going about it. Yeah.
He's speed running that falling wisdom, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily
get-
the wisdom that's the problem.
Mhm.
It's
He's
more
careful with the magic.
it's more of who he starts to hang around. And he's got this big push of he wants to return power to the indigenous people, especially down in Mexico. Great idea.
Yep.
Sounds good. Good stuff.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the people he starts hanging around with who are telling him, we can give you the power to take control of Mexico.
Oh no.
The Seers that
Yep.
we know are down in Mexico.
Yep.
So, because this entirely makes sense.
Yep.
But I'm going to let Ralph explain it.
Yeah. So, in the course of Salazar's apprenticeship, Legba is excited about the fact that there's another bright, troubled man who's trying to walk the path of wisdom to change his life. And he starts identifying with that a little bit too much. And then Salazar starts asking about connection because Legba is totally isolationist, right? And he likes the fact that he and the other members of the coven are in Purgatory Bluff and that they don't belong to any discrete groups. I mean, he has already been a part of so many groups in his life that were oppressive, not because of any specific practices, just the nature of large groups that, I mean, Les Enfants themselves is just, kind of an exception in his mind. It's like, yeah, those are my people. But he doesn't think of it the same way he would think of being a part of a club or something else, right? Well, Salazar is like, really don't get why you all don't like the whole order thing. There are tremendous benefits of interacting with other mages who have knowledge and power. And then he brings up, and also, what about the seers? What's wrong with the seers? And that starts chafing on Cloak because Legba entertains it, especially at that level of wisdom. He's like, it's just an answer that a young mage is asking. Sorry, a question a young mage is posing. Why not them? He doesn't assume in his interest necessarily. He says, well, I've seen this, and there reaches this trend, this conflict of interest and motivation between Cloak and Legba for the very first time, where he realizes that his pursuit of magic and his training of Salazar is causing him actual problems in his psyche. And he can't keep entertaining these things about, he just can't agree with having an apprentice, proving an apprentice going to the seers. So they have this kind of rift. They like spread apart. They're getting close and it's causing a lot of friction. And they're both enjoying their pursuit of prime together and meeting people around the surrounding area. And Cloak has these like, thoughts that perhaps this guy is really going to turn it around and choose a different approach. And he's like, look, I really think the seers are where I need to go. Maybe they're not the right place for me ultimately, but I got to see what they have to offer. And Cloak is like, this guy's just going to walk right into tyranny and participate. So he says, you have to leave. You can't stay here anymore. And I think for the first time, he actually cut sympathy with him, right? Like, this is something that was really hard for him. Like, he thinks that the links in a chain that you build over your life are something that you leave there, and disposing of them is disrespectful. It's sacrilegious in a way. But he's like, you're going to go to the seers with all the sympathy you have to this town that we protect. And we've talked about it. You know how I feel about it. And he takes it as a personal failing that he's apprentice after all the time he spent with him is just going to walk right to where the coven was trying to stop him from going before he awakened. So that leads to Cloak being in a kind of dark place for a while.
This definitely puts Isabel on edge because she knows that. Well, She doesn't know that her dad's there. She knows that Mexico City is where she could be on the path to meeting him again, I think is how it was
Mhm.
phrased, right?
Yep.
And she's like, this is, and before Gisela left, Isabel had started learning some more time and fate from her. And it's just like that little bit of understanding she's got is like, this feels bad. This
Yeah.
feels really bad.
And that is the thing where I'm now going to turn to the rest of the group and go, Salazar knows about this place. And while I believe Legba aggressively cut some sympathy to dissuade Salazar from being able to return here with malice in his heart, right? Did the rest of y'all do anything to pursue or check in on Salazar or anything like that?
While he's here
Um,
or after he leaves?
I mean, both, but specifically after he leaves.
Well, Theo would definitely be reinforcing defenses. So that's where her safe place goes from 2 to
And
4.
I will say this: when Salazar leaves, he has no like ill will toward you all, because
Mhm.
even though you disrupted this whole ritual stuff that he had going on, he now has more power than ever.
Right.
And while he was an apprentice, he probably learned some things from y'all. Maybe not necessarily sat down to learn directly from you, but at least was part of meetings and stuff like that. He wasn't like just this black sheep hanging outside the coven. He would have been the new mage who you start to see start to drift away and have different feelings about things. And so when he leaves, he's not necessarily headed straight to the series, I'm going to go sign up, but
Right.
he's headed to go investigate.
And Theo's view isn't that necessarily that Salazar will prove a threat to directly, but the people that he's going to start hanging out with might see an opportunity to exploit or oppress.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why she's beefing up her defenses around town.
That
There's a
makes
few
complete
more scarecrows show up around the Stokes farm,
sense. Ooh, cool.
Yeah. right? And that kind of stuff. And the house gets some reinforcements and that kind of thing.
I think Petrichor probably teaches him about forces some.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah.
And like helping explain. I mean, you're getting Prime from a different viewpoint from Cloak,
Mm-hmm.
from Legba, and so forces from a different viewpoint from.
I like
Petrichor.
that. Yeah.
It's like
That's awesome.
cool, and it seems fitting since forces was the arcana that I first interacted with him with,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and then I fucking kill his ass. So I think it's like a very tense sort of. I mean, in the like Isabel always knows how to act around people, and I think that one is one that she never figures out until even
Till he's
after he
gone.
leaves.
Yeah.
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 And so it just like I think it just kind of goes to like Isabel doesn't think any mage is stupid enough to come and try and do some sort of direct assault on our town that doesn't
Yeah.
have any mysteries in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because by this point,
That's it.
Isabel's getting bored with the town too.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where that like harder enforced line between her and Petrichor is like pretty easy. Like there's not so much to do after a while.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
I like that. Okay, so zoom. Boom, 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 boom.
We can talk about guns.
Yeah, that's what I was about to bring. This is where we start to look at the mages starting to look at magical mysteries and like where they start to like, well, we're settling in and let me find that personal obsession or that personal little goal and stuff like that. So yeah, guns.
So two different gun things happen. The first happens faster, because when we left off with having helped Velosia, Isabel trapped the abyssal
Akamoth.
entity, the Akamoth, in representation of one of her guns, and then
Mhm.
promptly doesn't think about it because mind, no.
Yep.
And then stuff starts to get really wonky, and starts like bleeding into reality and stuff like that. And so I think I can imagine that she and Cloak make the journey out to the Astral Sea
Yeah.
to get rid of it.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, it does bring up. Is anybody else ready to delve so deep into the collective the unconscious, and into through the Temenos, which Legba has started to explore, and out into the Anima Mundi, all the way to the edge, to the Ouroboros.
Yes.
I think like having not studied mind at all, Isabel just goes, there's got to be some like real far out there place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if these things, if the animals, the rocks, the trees and stuff have spirits, then they've probably got dreams, right? It just like makes sense to her.
That's great.
And that's like the one mind insight she's ever had in her whole life.
She's a theorist. She's allowed to be weak at mind, everybody.
But it's such an important insight. That's the best part.
And so I think it just turns into this like quest of like, I'm just going to take it as far away as possible. And then it becomes this like exploration adventure.
That's awesome.
No favors from the what are they called?
Aeons.
The Aeons this time, though.
Yeah. Don't want to walk around with that 6 dot of prime on your head. Worked really well for Songbird.
It did. Mission accomplished. And then
find
the
old man in the hut and say hi, Dave.
Nope.
The other gun issue, and this kind of extends along with just the find out portion of the fuck around part of Isabel's weather and harvest manipulation, is that you keep summoning storms to make sure everything has perfect rainfall for all the crops and everything, and also for like defenses and stuff like that. The big lightning dragon in the sky gets real comfortable with himself as like king of the roost in the spirit side of things.
So what'd you do to him?
I'm getting there.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine.
Particularly, he starts picking a fight with the river.
Oh, cool! I didn't expect that. Yes. Awesome.
And so Isabel ends up having to interject herself in the middle of this fight, having a like in like across the gauntlet fucking battle, flying around and acting a damn fool, trying not to get drowned or lightninged.
This is probably after Abigail leaves too. Right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
No backup.
And this is where I think Isabel first realizes that she's set things in motion as far as the environmental manipulation and stuff like that. And the only solution that she ends up having is get over here and shoves Alphoth into her other gun.
Oh,
as a fetish.
Yes.
So now she's got one that's a soul stone and her dedicated magical tool, and the other that's a fucking lightning spewing, like lightning dragon revolver.
Lightning gun.
Which, bear in mind, picks up essence and when it's hanging around residents, which is storms, which happens fairly frequently in Purgatory Bluff. So, of course, in order to keep the fetish,
gotta bleed it off.
So every now and then, go ahead, just fire some lightning bolts into the air.
Lowering lightning bolts.
I mean, can also just like siphon it off.
Yep. Yeah, because you have spirit, so that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, because that. Yeah, I have spirit. It says it right there.
Yep.
4 of them. I don't got no 5s next to my picture, but
not a single one. Now that you mention it.
Yeah.
Don't need 5s always.
I know. That was my thought. And so yeah, that's just another tool in her belt, right?
That's so cool. Oh man. Would help with that bandit raid.
Yeah.
The great way to scare somebody. Warning shot.
Um,
You might want to get on out of here. Guns here are real loud.
Yeah.
What do you mean guns here are real loud?
and this is where we get into, much like Cloak started, just sort of talking to people telepathically and jumping around. Isabel does feel okay using her attainments.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
which involve the ability to just spew forth a storm,
Yes.
bodily from her breath,
Yes.
and then with a thunderclap, just like launch across the gauntlet and arrive flashy and showy and letting everything in the area know that you've arrived.
Into
Which
the
is-
shadow or out of the shadow.
We're out of the shadow. Which has certainly not ever been a problem and has not caused any problems for herself or other entities nearby.
Which does bring up, because on the other side of the shadow, there is a big spider.
Yeah. I forget her title.
Somebody brought it up in chat.
Yeah, I think all's right.
I think they just mentioned the big spider.
Oh yeah.
Well, Drew's looking it up. Chris, I want to compliment you on giving us the opportunity to make the pun by asking Petrichor, "Hey, can you please cough up a storm for us?"
Beautiful.
Yeah,
The
it's real
Ladyship
good.
of Darkness.
Yeah.
Spirit of spiders and darkness.
Very
Totally
proper lady.
totally original character. Do not sue me, Mr. Tolkien.
I was going to say, is this like a Shelob class spider or an Ungoliant class spider?
Actually, because she is rank, I can't remember exactly.
I think you said 7 before.
You say like 7? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is an Ungoliant class spider.
Yes. Yeah.
Isabel does go back and like formalize a sort of, hey, just so you know, I will bring you your due deference. And I think the darkness aspect of storm resonance, I think, qualifies pretty well. So it's pretty easy to just like, oh, Alphonse getting pretty full. Let's go pay our tribute.
That spooky darkness when the storm sets in, and you have darkness during noon, and all you have is the flash of thunder, flash of lightning, peal of thunder.
Well,
yes.
I've been in a derecho, right? And it was dark as hell at
Yep.
noon.
Yes, and
100-mile-an-hour winds seems the right kind of
you
situation.
just hide. Yep. Yeah, and her ban is obligated to not eat or consume those guests of her court who show deference, decorum, and make acceptable offerings. So yes, that's kind of what I had figured we would eventually get to this point where it's like, listen, I'm not going to mess with you. You're not going to mess with me. And, not quite a werewolf thing, but I'm going to handle stuff on this side of the gauntlet. And your ladyship is all you. Because on the surface of the shadow, there's Purgatory Bluff. But as soon as you dip within the mines, because you guys found it through this little, spooky little locust underwater. But yes, she is also in the mines. So it had never come up, and I've been waiting. But yes, the much easier way to find her realm, easy is the locust, but yes, the direct way is in the shadow. You just walk into the mines and disappear down into the dark, and all of a sudden you find spoopy webs. Boom, boom. Oh,
I hope it'll be fun like Gremlins 2.
No. This is the terrifying mother of darkness itself. Yeah.
I remember.
So I had a couple of things along the same sort of lines.
Oh, sure.
Theo's been spending more and more time in her workshop / secret lab, so she's built herself a golem, a Besnik. Not really a talkative individual, but helps out holding this and stirring that and that kind of thing, helping out in the workshop. but because he doesn't talk a lot, she bound a willing familiar ghost to a skull that she carries with her all now, named Ollie. So she's frequently talking to Ollie as a way to keep company when she's working alone in her lab.
Love it. Though let's not stop. If you're gonna start talking about the golems, we also need to talk about the scarecrows. So many scarecrows and glowing with magic.
They're just there for defenses in case it ever becomes needed.
And the zombie wolf is somewhere out there in the woods too.
Zombie wolf is still out there somewhere. Yeah.
They're glowing
Sounds
with magic. I don't know.
haunted.
Theo has Prime. They don't have to glow with magic.
No. I mean more mage sight.
There's a real don't ask, don't tell ghost policy in Isabel's side of town.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and it was brought up, but we'll restate. Theo definitely like keeps an eye on the ghosts. Any troublemakers, they are Jotun from the town, especially at her level of death. It's not super great, but it's enough to handle most ghosts. So we have that, but also we're jumping forward just a little bit, but it does need to be brought up. Theo, for those of you at home who are like, I can't believe she's getting away with this. Don't worry, she's not. Catherine and Valosia have both, especially now that Valosia is a little bit older, starting to notice, she was trained to be a medium. Mom taught her. Theo taught her how to be a medium. She can occasionally manage it. And then there's Jules, one of Mom's good friend's husband. He gets up to some weird stuff now and then too, because it doesn't matter how good of how good you are at hiding some stuff leaks out. Something is said, a book is noticed, and Jules
in my head, Valosia's making up for a lot of lost time, so she's really precocious.
Oh yes.
And very curious. And
yes.
Yeah. Putting up on her foot.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but Jules, day job, school teacher and stay-at-home dad, but at night, still a sorcerer, still a spirit summoner on occasion. I mean, when your wife can just go and bring you the spirit, it takes a little of the fun of summoning spirits out, but he does.
Sometimes when he's having a hard time, she'll do it for him, but pretend that she's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Make him think he did it.
Yeah. Now that said, he has started to collect some sorcerer's rituals, because occasionally he finds some stuff, and I imagine he and Legba occasionally have a little quid pro quo as Legba starts to explore Metropolis. We'll get to that here next. Yes. But and is also the town apothecary. Not a doctor. He would never suggest that he's a doctor or is going to fix somebody's broken leg. But if somebody asks the thing and knows to talk to Jules, maybe particular tincture can be brewed up. Occasionally, if it's a particularly worthy task, he may actually bring it to the coven and be like, hey, this is outside of my purview, but somebody needs help. And he will try his best for people who are doing things out of personal greed, especially amongst the miners where they're cheating one another. Jules is like, yeah, I'll make you a luck potion. I hope it works for you. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't, because such is the nature of apothecarianism. I made that word up. It sounds right. Welcome to the English language. But when somebody is like, hey, I need something, the doctor has tried everything. Do you know something that may cure my son's cough? Jules is like, I'll whip something up. Hey, honey, I might need your help with this. That brings me over to two things on the Legba side of things. One is Legba also receives requests for help. I imagine
Mhm.
this was probably a couple years because we didn't actually list it out, but I imagine it's well after Salazar has left and Legba and Cloak have kind of figured themselves out. And probably after Cloak has a good heart to heart with the Coven.
Yep.
Um, uh, Word starts to spread out from Les Enfants that if you need something desperately, there's a ritual. And I think the Les Enfants say it with a little bit of a smirk. Oh yes, it's a voodoo ritual. They tell to
A
all
little
the
bit of that
towns.
stank on it.
Yep. That said, I think even Les Enfants do it. But if you I believe you have to leave it somewhere specific after walking a certain path. But if you leave a message for a little bit, it was a dark alongside a dark rum bottle, and then 2 or 3 months later, it's like no, an empty dark rum bottle. As because Legba quite enjoys the dark rum. Cloak is teetotaler.
Yes.
It's like, okay, hang on, we can't.
Yep, he drew the line there. We're not drinking
Because these bottles of rum started showing up in Anastasio's shop, and there were questions about theft that started to come up, and it was like, you know what? Empty bottles. Bring me an empty bottle with your message inside. And Legba.
For color, I imagine that part of the ritual is walking this crooked line with a limp away from town out into the distance. It just meanders in a way, and you end up at a spot, and that's where you have to leave it.
You'll know it when you see it, because I imagine like it's a crossroads in the middle of nowhere, like roads that don't connect to anything.
Yep.
And that, at least on the Legba side, and this is where I'm also going to get input from everybody else, is where the townsfolk can request help. Things that are beyond what Sheriff Isabel can do, beyond what they're willing to pay Ike and Wright for. When all other things have gone astray and things aren't working, well, you can try this weird voodoo ritual that some people have tried and it's worked. Other people, and some people have claimed it's pure hokum. Never saw a crossroads. Other people say they made it to the crossroads, but nothing happened. They left the message and nothing happened. Actually, I'm going to pause. Did I miss anything there, Ralph?
No.
Okay, good stuff. Does any of the rest of the group, including potentially Helena, listen for or have any ways that they've let townsfolk know that they can ask for supernatural help?
Sure.
Is there a specific methodology that Baba Sira employs?
My idea was just like leaving a candle burning in a window at night. Just a lone candle.
And then does Baba Sara visit them in the night in the dark?
And
The scary crone.
And then sometimes
Looking in the window.
a crone will show up.
I love that. Petrichor? I'm imagining no, yeah. Helena. No?
Nope.
Didn't think so. Cool. Then
He
that also
keeps an eye on things, on like magical things that might be threats or problems. But she has a very strong separation between who she is in her normal day-to-day life and then when she is in like guardian mode.
I like that. So we're going to touch on one thing about Legba. We'll talk about Metropolis here. Then we'll talk about who Max is. Helena. I don't know where I keep getting this Max name from. Max is the name of the cat that we caught and had fixed actually this past week.
Did you keep him?
Oh no. He is not a happy indoor boy.
Spicy boy.
He is.
Spicy boy.
He's actually like he's super chill. But as soon as like you're like, hey, do you want to come hang out anywhere other than the basket under a blanket in the guest bathroom? Then he's like, door or back into the basket. Those are the two options for me. So we're like, okay, we get it. You an outside cat. That's fine. Bye-bye. Poof. He's gone. And it was like, maybe he'll never come back because we've caught him twice now to keep him indoors. No, he showed up that night. It was like, hey, are you guys going to put food out again? Yes, we're going to put food out again.
Yeah, just don't like leave it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
It gets other animals.
Oh, the food?
Raccoons.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
He rolls around at dinner time. He knows when dinner time is, comes out, expects the food on the plate, eats food, he and his mom, and then they leave. They're great. Anyways, so yes, Legba in Metropolis.
Mm-hmm. So after Legba had a confrontation with the members of the coven because he assumed that that's what they were requesting, and then definitely not trying to dictate the manner in which all the other characters would have responded, but he instead received a we're trying to figure out how to relate to you because you seem to operate from this principle that everything has to be about confrontation. And although we understand that your version of calm is not threatening eyes or posture, it still kind of feels like you're you're forcing a challenge. And then he reveals, I thought you were challenging me, and in response to your challenges, this is how I respond. And he's like, okay, do you even know how to relate to people? And he's like, why would I know how to relate to anybody? So he has that heart to heart, and that leads to him understanding that, wait a minute, these people are around him and they have never done anything violent or aggressive towards him. That actually means that they are safe to be around. So he starts like reconfiguring his thoughts about relationships, and that's what eventually leads to, you know, this concepts of friendship that he has later in a decade. So part of that is on this growth, and he's like, I need to have other relationships. He can't have real true friendships within les enfants. The reason why is because of the metamorph, or not the metamorph exactly, awakening, but transferring over his presence as a sent to investigate the group, and then, you know, becoming mentored and having real responsibility for them. It's all wrapped up in this weird dynamic that because of the intrinsic hierarchy there, he can't really choose anyone as an equal relationship. So he has the coven, the people in the town, that's still kind of weird. Well, then he starts going back to Metropolis to be like, let me look for people. I can't just like physically walk around Colorado and find friends at the fort or something like that, right? So, but he can go into the astral, and what does a MSD go to? Go into the astral and look. So he's going back to Metropolis, like wandering around one day, and starts interacting with people. And after his experiences with Salazar and helping him, training him through Prime and increasing it himself, he starts learning about people wanting stuff, and he starts discussing the nature of magic with people, how to construct things. And that's what eventually leads to him working on roadcraft. He finds that really interesting. He's always been, you know, into reading and stuff, but he realizes, oh, wait a minute, this is something I can do that's really constructive. And so in the course of talking about rotes and understanding how to write them, transcribe them well in a grimoire, he starts looking in the construction of grimoires. And he actually realizes he has a pretty fast hand at that. So he becomes pretty good at writing grimoires and starts gaining some credibility and a reputation there, which leads to him finding interesting people and having good relationships there. And he's able to create a rather simple system, right? His skill in creating or transcribing grimoires becomes so robust that people can pay in one of two ways. They can give him a soul stone, or they can give him the equivalent in very serious favors, decided upon the receipt of the grimoire. Whereas a soul stone, you don't know, it can be used for whatever purpose. There's a negotiation of a specific task that you have to perform in the course of getting this grimoire inscribed. And of course, you know, in Cloak, it's not going to be like, go kill somebody for me, but it's like, it was arduous things. And he realized that what he was doing in the course of this was also evaluating people for their willingness to go through challenge and adversity to do something important so he could, scrutinize people for potential close relationships as fellow mages. And that's what helps him really reinforce you're still doing the same thing. You're still trying to force people to go through a gauntlet to demonstrate that they're a safe person to be around. Whereas if you really just want friends, just say you want friends. And that's at the point that he has this status. So people seek him out and he starts looking for actual people to hang out with. He still keeps the soul stone strategy. Is if you want a grimoire written, just bring a soul stone. Doesn't matter who it is. Just bring some. It doesn't have to be yours. I don't really care. Right.
Incredible.
But yeah,
Technically makes him a soul dealer.
Yep, exactly.
Diamond Order are going to be real pleased about this.
Yep. So he's been flipping around over the course of the decade. Legba has had, I don't know, 50 soul stones go through his hands.
You didn't have
People want these grimoires.
You didn't take the grimoire merit, by the way, did you? I didn't see that.
No, I didn't.
Okay, just double check because that's something we had discussed.
Yes, we had.
Yeah, and now we have a new rote, which we will talk about later. Because I think we're just to because I can cut this part out. Ralph, do you need to go soonish?
No, so whatchamacallit, my cousin is going to bring Teddy here, so we have 20 minutes until he arrives.
Okay,
Gotcha.
I mean, probably just need to accelerate a little bit.
Well, because basically the last little major thing is Max, and then what's going on with the river. So yeah, Ash, can you tell me about Helena Anderson?
She was a adamantine arrow, essentially a soldier for the New York Concilium.
Cool.
Who kind of got disillusioned with all of it. They executed her mentor for having done. God. I mean, he did the things. But like,
what did he do?
I haven't figured out the story
yet. Determined that yet. I mean, that will be revealed later.
Maybe she doesn't know.
Yeah.
It was more like, you were accused of this crime. Mm-hmm. He factually did do it. Mm-hmm. There were extenuating circumstances, but they didn't really care because you did it.
Goddamn Guardians, bro.
The Interfector, man.
Yeah, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And so that kind of shook her resolute confidence in like being a warrior for the truth. It's like, there are shades of gray, actually. And she doesn't know how to deal with that. She's like 40. She's been doing this for 20 years. And so she quit. She yeah. She was kind of encouraged to leave if you're gonna keep trying to cause us problems over this. So she took the records that Egrock brought back of this weird little magic town. It's kind of boring.
It's a sleepy resort town. You just come hang out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Resort.
It's really mysterious because there's so many mages here, but other than that, it's like completely boring.
Yeah, it's completely dead. There's a bunch of witches here for some reason. It's safe. It's
maybe
fine.
It's kind of big imp who's protected the place. Yeah, it's warded.
So
use the word cabal.
So yeah, she basically packed up, came here, essentially looking to retire.
Ooh, cool.
She wants just somewhere to be that is away from all of the Diamond Order politicking. So yeah. At this point she's been in town for a couple of years now. I feel like she's she does work as like a school teacher. She looks like a school teacher. She looks very
school marm.
Yeah.
Like prim and proper.
Yeah, she's very proper. She clearly she looks like she had money. She is fallen out of that somewhat. A lot of it came from the status and the work and the position she held.
Yeah.
But she still carries herself like a proper lady. And yeah, she moved into the town. She doesn't she's not like trying to be friends with y'all. She's literally just like, hi, hello. Going to get on do proper mage introductions, let you know that she's literally just here. She's not here to start anything.
I love it that she would be doing like proper mage introductions, and we're hicks that don't know what she's, because there's a ritual to do a proper mage introduction, and we wouldn't know any of that stuff.
So yeah, she's
The second you say, "Yeah, I quit," and left the diamond, we're like, "Yeah, you're cool."
That's fine. Yeah.
yeah. So like,
You're
she's not
just
trying
fine.
to join up with your coven. She's just trying to hang out.
Retired
like I was saying,
and quiet.
Yeah. I figured that like we'll probably get closer through the whole dealing with this nonsense with the river, because she settled in, and her main role now is she doesn't really have a shadow name anymore, but roughly she's taken, because she left. She was Michael. She was God's holy warrior,
Archangel Michael.
Yeah, and she left that. So now, roughly, it's not like set as a real shadow name, but she took Max, which was just the name of sheepdog that she had growing up.
Oh wow!
Because that's basically what she's doing here.
Yeah, and not even like because correct me if I'm wrong, we're not talking about like a sheep herding dog.
No, she's moved in to be like livestock guardian dog for the town.
She's the muscle.
Ooh,
which actually,
yes,
if I remember correctly, let me come back to the character sheet, because the first time I looked at this character sheet was today.
Well, the first time it existed was yesterday.
Oh, okay. But yes, Helena Anderson, prim proper school marm, rocking the 4 strength.
Yeah.
So the ruler's getting wrapped on some knuckles. You gonna feel that? You ain't gonna do it again.
That's gonna hurt real bad.
It's gonna hurt real bad. And I think you still have more XP to spend, is what you were saying off stream.
Yeah, I realized that I was holding on to a bunch from Gisela that I hadn't spent. So
we'll see some more stuff, but you can see her Arcana down there to give you kind of an idea.
A strong,
I know,
New York Concilium adamantine arrow with Forces Prime and Life.
Yep.
Damn, original character, do not steal.
To be fair, weaponry, not brawl. Completely different character.
Fair. Yeah, fair. This one would never turn herself into a fucking sword.
She would turn herself into boxing gloves. Come. Oh Lord.
She does use swords. She has a specialty in weaponry blades.
Hell yeah.
I'm just assuming that she's smarter than Songbird.
She's in it too. I might change that, but
now that I have all the smarter than Songbird. Cool.
She was mostly just the physical attributes were her strength, though. She never really dealt too much into the intellectual parts of being a mage. She had her holy calling. She could discern.
Great.
She could discern the truth. Oh yeah, she's like, she would get along with Isabel a lot with regards to the whole like, you're seeing magic as God's influence on the world.
God, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it has been revealed to us the building blocks by which God made the world. And it is up to us to help it and guide it and shape it.
The Dramiel vibes.
Yeah, basically, she sees the awakening as like a holy calling. This is your duty.
Is playing in the background.
It's her shadow name, Uncle Benjamin.
Which brings me to we've alluded to it a little bit across a couple different things, but yes, 1850, we have the Fugitive Slave Act. This is also a quick reminder for folks who are like here for the good times. We're not necessarily getting into something super dark here any more than we normally do, but we're going to be talking about slavery. That's going to be one of the big arcs here. And because, at this point, slaves escaping into the North are no longer safe up there. Free Black people are not safe up there because there's no habeas corpus. It's like, we think you're an escaped slave, so you're going to be sent back to the South. That's
unless they make it to Purgatory Bluff.
well, that's the thing is because of this, a lot of escaped slaves start to run west and because heading to the north to the free states are no longer safe, so they start to move west. And in this past couple years, some have started to make their way and do get out to Purgatory Bluff, where they are sheltered because there's a whole bunch of Black people here already, who not only at this point are working in the mines, but some of them replace Gisela and start working in Anastasio's shop. Some of them are working out in the farms. Some of them have made their own farms. Some of them work in the mill. Les Enfants has spread out because the mines are still struggling on, but they're nowhere near as productive as they once were. New jobs have to be found. The mill is a huge help. You can work for Ike, but for some reason, Les Enfants just really don't like working under Ike. Weird. So they've started to find other places. They've created their own, cottage industry kind of jobs. I think some of them may have taken over Gisela's goats at this point. Cool. They have started to spread, and instead of being predominantly centered up there in the mines, have started to spread out throughout Purgatory Bluff. Which means there's lots
here.
Yes.
So in terms of fugitive slaves being harbored in the mines first and then elsewhere in the town, right? It's easy for people to hide there. It's already safe. People know people are spending time there all the time, right? I think the Coven would learn about the Fugitive Slave Act much earlier than anybody else in town, considering there's no railroad, right? And it takes like months and months for information to get out. But Cloak has at this point gotten, or not in 1850, but has gotten to the status of metropolis, but he's visiting the astral realms a bunch. So he might have heard about this a bit sooner as a consequence of magic. And so then that's why people can make plans for this. So then the first time that a fugitive slave comes into town, everybody's already ready, expecting that this might occur.
Absolutely. And it's been a few years that they've been trickling in and finding safe places within Purgatory Bluff, or if some of them know home someplace else, Legbud can get them there. But there's some folks who just need another place to go, and they can be sent somewhere else. It takes some effort, but it's minimal, and because of Legbud's particular attainments, doesn't break their minds. No quiescence, no dissonance because of the attainment. And then we start to move forward to 1857, and a plan is set in motion.
All right. Yes.
Ralph, I'll let you describe, and we will squeeze in a little bit of live role play between the three of you because Max is not here.
Sweet.
Cool. Of the plan that you put into motion, and that we will see in our first episode when we record that.
Okay.
Because we haven't done that yet.
So I'll provide a preface, and then of course we can do everything in role play. So this is happening for a few years where we're harboring a person here or there, right? And then Legbud's been, involved in the grimoire craft and attaining his status in Metropolis. And like I said, reinforcing this perspective that he needs to find real relationships and do real important things and actually connect with people. And that's when he realizes, wait a minute, they're fleeing something that's still going on. We broke our chains. We should be breaking other chains. So he then, Cloak has a conversation with the members of Les Enfants, right? Like, they can't leave Purgatory Bluff, but it is merely a discussion about what is the moral imperative. And in the course of that, he's like, okay, we're just going to have to do something. So he then comes to the Covenant and he's like, I have a plan. We have a river. We can go to slave plantations along rivers and lead people into the river, and they can just walk along the river into the portal and walk out of the river again. And they're here. Yeah. So he's like, we need a
Baptized
raid.
into a new life by the Purgatorio is certainly
Yeah.
a fucking
Yep.
confrontation. Let's see it goes.
And this is where every one of these players who I've told the Purgatorio is going to be a problem, and now they're knowing why it went from being a problem to being a problem with a capital P. But yes, does Petrichor and Babasera have anything to say?
Does Isabel have another gun?
He's too big, I think. It would be very hard.
Hmm.
You could get a shotgun.
I mean,
double barrel revolver.
no.
Yes. It's Desperado.
Yeah, that's like from a like humanitarian perspective.
Yeah.
Isabel was already like had an interesting relationship to slavery, having grown up during the Mexican Rebellion,
Mhm.
and then seeing her family be rather cruel, and then like adding that onto all of her experiences with Les Enfants and everything like that, like is very much like, yep, this is, we're not in U.S. territory ish.
Nope.
So I don't care how many marshals they send, they don't have any jurisdiction.
Yep.
And we can, if we absolutely get ourselves really into trouble with this, we can lean on our native friends,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not going to want a bunch of army folks running through their land either. So
Nope.
yeah, we just need to not have them immediately be swept away.
Yep.
Yep.
Because
Babasera.
at this point, the river's fucking bad. It's real bad here.
10 years
She's
ago,
pissed.
10 years ago, it was a self-conceited
Mhm.
spirit. Now the town
But-
needs it more than ever, and now the mill needs it.
Mhm.
Babasera. Yeah.
First, we skipped over it with a bridge, and then we put a mill in there to make use of her power without asking. Or,
To be
sorry,
clear,
not without asking,
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
getting permission.
Mhm.
With Isabel pretty much saying, yeah, it's fine.
Yep.
Like, not telling Theo that, like, yeah, she's going to be upset about that. But it's fine. I'll shut her up. And then just, like, promptly not doing that for, like, another 3 years.
It'll be fine.
And now she's, like, probably a rank 5, like, almost rank 6 spirit, right?
It's rank 5. I'm not going to push her
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
undealable territory. But
Well,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying is, like,
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Isabel's
She's getting
realizing
there.
she's like, this is on the brink of, like, being untenable, right?
Yep.
and she started using like reaching Numa and stuff like that, and just like, yep,
Oh.
like people do a little bit of laundry and adios.
Yeah, there's been a couple accidents so far, but for the most part, especially with Sheriff Isabel noticing what's going on, giving people warning, nobody's died yet.
Yeah.
Yet.
Right. Yeah, I think mainly like she's not like reaching out and just grabbing people with water, but she's like manipulating all of the rocks and everything in the river to make it like
Oh,
really
yeah.
fucking deadly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like for the and like try and smash the boats and stuff like that.
Yep.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she is starting to delight in destruction, just
Mhm.
outright.
Mm.
Yep. So when we return, we will actually be playing out the.
Confrontation.
Well, it will be the confrontation, but we will be starting with the the first journey of the first enslaved people walking down to the river, where 3 ghostly, spooky folks are whispering. One specifically taking the lead, I expect, but 3, spooky, ghostly folks saying, "Come with me, we'll break your chains. Just walk into the river and, into the River Jordan." And coming out the other side, and shit hits the fan.
Cool.
Yes.
Because Max isn't involved in the initial, hey, let's, because let's be honest, going to a plantation, real easy. Real easy for Legba.
Mhm.
The coming back part, that's going to be the problem. And that's where we also see Max being like, hang on, what's going on over there?
Yeah.
And we will start to discover the grand mystery, because for those of you at home who are like, hey, wait, you guys are just going to be teleporting, popping into plantations, taking people away to freedom? Yes.
Yes.
But there's a lot more than that. Because,
Let me be clear. Yes.
yeah.
What we're doing.
Are
There
we
are also
gonna,
political consequences.
are we going to be pissing off the Diamond
It
Order?
made the
Yes.
Yeah.
Are we going to be pissing off the Seers? Yes. Are we going to find some really fucked up weird mystery that's happening to some of these at some of these plantations? Yes. Oh yeah.
Isabel's fucking dreams, dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
and
good.
unfortunately, the magical problem is not something that we can just be, well, set the big house on fire and walk away. Not gonna cut it.
Let me be clear. It's been tried.
Yeah.
We can also do that.
We'll do that on the way out too, if necessary. But yeah. So
I love that Max was like, I came here to retire.
Yep.
yeah.
I came
Now
to
you
your
put me in the middle of a war zone.
Whatever motherfucker wrote the 1857 almanac did not understand how much lightning started fires.
I hadn't mentioned to the group that we may be heading out to Georgia occasionally, and then it was pointed out Mississippi River, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
We can just travel
yeah.
to Mississippi all the way up and down.
yep.
And 1854
Louisiana,
is
baby.
Kansas-Nebraska Act.
Oh,
What
also
was
true.
it?
Sorry.
Like Bloody Kansas is like still happening.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So like, and that's on this side of the river, right?
Mhm.
That's right. Yeah. That's a really good point.
So that will be where we are headed in the near future, friends.
It'd be so good.
These are going to be coming out as recorded videos. This one is going to come out very, very quickly. And then there will probably be a little bit of a gap. We're going to work on having a nice little queue and buffer of stuff, so that way we can record kind of at our leisure, release videos. And if the buffer starts to get real big, then I might be like, oops, we dropped 2 videos this week. But the whole idea is we're going to try and enable us to have lives on Friday nights instead of trying to do every week. So if we need to take a little time off, we will. For instance, in a month from now, I'm taking the Friday off so I can go ride roller coasters.
Yes.
it has been, like a decade since I've ridden a roller coaster. So
Woo!
yeah.
You do that.
So we're gonna do that. It's also gonna let us have a little bit more relaxed thing. We can start when we want, we can end more or less when we want. And overall, we're going back to the first 34, 35 episodes of the Rookery. And back to that style. We're swapping John in for Ralph. Wait, no, swap that.
Nice.
The other way around.
But still a Mastigos.
Mhm.
And I look forward to this. I had a blast being a player under Ralph and Chris and Craig, but I'm back, baby. I'm super excited to be here. And
Go back.
this is gonna be a good magical time. Thank you all for
We're gonna
joining
have
us,
good times.
and we'll see you next time. Bye now.
Everybody.